We agreed on an open marriage, but he instantly went for my best friend. Now he's loving it, but I am... Hey Reddit, my name is Sophia and I'm 28 years old. I work as a sales representative in a small company, but I'm well paid and I love my job. So I am in desperate need of advice. I think I may have ruined my marriage and pushed my husband away. The thing is, we agreed on an open marriage, but he instantly went for my best friend, and now he's loving it, but I am feeling very angry about it, even though I was the one who suggested it in the first place. I have been married to Adam, my husband, for 6 years, and we don't have any children yet. That is literally my fault because I kept putting off having kids, because I felt I wasn't ready for them yet, and because I felt they would cramp up my lifestyle. I met Adam back in university, where I was struggling with one of my courses. It was a math-related course, and I obviously was just the worst with maths. My best friend, Carrie, had introduced him to me because he had always been good in maths. So he started tutoring me, and then we started developing feelings for each other, and when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I eagerly said yes. We dated throughout college, and those days were the best days of our lives. My best friend, Carrie, had always been happy for us and had never shown any sign of jealousy. In fact, when Adam and I got together, she had been in a committed relationship, so it surprises me so much that now she's together with Adam. I mean, she's supposedly my best friend. And even though I had suggested an open marriage to Adam, I did not think she would even be one person Adam would date, or that she would even agree to it. Carrie and I go way back. We had been best friends for almost 20 years, ever since my parents and I moved into Carrie's hometown in search of a new place to settle and start a small business. We met in kindergarten and we became very close. Soon, we were the best of friends and couldn't do without each other. Our parents became close because of our own friendship, and it had been a fun year growing up. When Carrie had her first menstrual cycle, I was there with her, because Carrie tended to have very serious menstrual cramps. When I had mine, she was also the first to know. She knew about my first crush, and I knew about hers too. We even worked extra hard to go to the same college, though we studied different things. Carrie is a calligrapher and is also a designer. I was also the first to know about her first heartbreak. In fact, all the heartbreaks, because one way or another, whenever a guy took an interest in Carrie and then met me, they switched their interest to me and left Carrie heartbroken. I rejected all of them, of course, because I didn't want to hurt my best friend further, but I guess it somehow became part of the regular things that happened in our lives. Whenever anyone got interested in Carrie, they met me and then dumped Carrie. One time, Carrie hid her relationship from me. It went on for about a month and a half before Carrie finally introduced the guy to me, but despite the fact that they had been together for a while, the guy still eventually did the same thing. Funny that, at that time, I had been dating Adam, so I hadn't even been interested in any other guy. Carrie was really hurt and wouldn't speak to me for a week, but eventually spoke to me after realizing it really wasn't my fault. Carrie got so used to being put down as the less beautiful one wherever we went. Even her own parents did that too. Whenever I went to their house to see Carrie when we were younger, her parents, especially her mom, would chide Carrie for not being like me or dressing the way I did. At first, I was uncomfortable with the attention I was getting at the expense of my best friend, but eventually it became a normal thing, and I just didn't mind. It is only as I write this that I realize just how silly my actions had been. But at the time, I was happy being called beautiful, and it made me careless about Carrie's feelings. I dated Adam throughout college, like I wrote earlier, but I wasn't entirely committed to him, though he never knew until we were married. Not that I wasn't in love with Adam, I was, but it was like I wasn't exactly satisfied being trapped in one relationship. I felt like I needed to explore, because one minute I'm entertained, and the next, I'm bored out of my mind. Don't get me wrong, Adam was never boring or failing as a partner and as a lover, but I was just bored. You see, I think I may have taken the advice given to me by my aunt too seriously. My Aunt Amelia, my father's sister, was a very carefree woman. She had 3 kids, but none of them lived with her because she had been in her 5th relationship and had refused to get married and had abandoned my cousins with our grandmother. She never visited except on very rare occasions, and when she did, she would always say to me in private that being with one man sucked and that it was rather exciting to be open to seeing others. I remember she would pat my head after saying things like that and wink at me playfully. She probably thought I wouldn't understand what she meant at the mere age of 9, but strangely I did, and it somehow became my principle. I loved Aunt Amelia so much back then, and I had always secretly wished she had been my mom rather than my uptight, overprotective mother. My mother would say being in several relationships at once only showcased how shallow-minded the person was, and of course there's no doubt who she addressed with those comments. But my Aunt Amelia was never affected. It was like she had a mind made out of iron that could take anything that was coming. I never knew that Aunt Amelia's lifestyle actually stuck with me for that long because it had been a long time. Many years had already passed, so I had never really even thought about it over the years. But when I started dating Adam, although we did all the usual things couples did, hung out, had several dates, texted, got gifts for each other, and sex was even an interesting part of our relationship, it still just wasn't enough for me. It was like I felt the need to be free. From what exactly? I wouldn't know, but I just kept feeling like that, and I did not understand the feeling until I first cheated on Adam. It had been a random party that I was invited to. I was supposed to go with Carrie and Adam, but Carrie had been down with a bug, and Adam had a test the next day that was quite important to him, so I went alone. I hadn't even wanted to go because the only 2 people I'd have liked to go with weren't able to go, but they had both convinced me to go and have fun on their behalf. So I went with the intention of just dashing in and out, so I could just say hi to the birthday girl who invited me. But the party wasn't like anything I had imagined it'd be. I had thought it'd be just some casual, usual birthday party with songs, a few drinks, a cake, and only a few people. But when I got there, apparently, she had invited some guys from another school over, and it was so crazy, everything that was happening. There were drugs, and sex was happening in every spot you turned to. I was so hot and bothered, and I decided to leave without even saying hello to the birthday girl. It was when I was trying to squeeze myself through dancing couples that I bumped hard into someone, and I started to apologize. But when I lifted my head, my mouth literally dried up, and my brain became a fussed mass that couldn't process anything. The guy, whom I later got to know as Cameron, was so hot, and he smiled down at me because he was just so tall, and the way his cheeks dimpled when he did just had me wrapped. He offered to buy me a drink, and I somehow forgot that I was supposedly leaving, and just accepted the request, and followed him to the bar, like some dummy being controlled. Soon enough, I regained my sense of speech, and we talked for a while. Well, not exactly talking. We were literally just flirting and giving each other the eye. You know, that undressing each other with your eyes thing. Well, we continued drinking and talking, and somehow it slipped out of my mouth that I was in a relationship. Instead of Cameron being turned off, he told me that we weren't planning to date each other. Just having fun at a party would be the term for what we were doing. I got tipsy after finishing half a bottle of alcohol. I had never been one for alcohol because I could even get drunk on a can of beer. I had sex with Cameron that night in one of the rooms, somehow forgetting the fact that I had some friends at that party. People who knew I was dating Adam. I blamed everything on the drink, though, and never mentioned it to Adam or even Carrie, my best friend, because I was kind of afraid she'd judge me. The next day, I had expected to feel some guilt or heaviness at heart for actually cheating on Adam, but none of that happened. I felt somehow excited, like it was the big break I needed, something like that. I'm not saying I didn't feel bad for cheating on Adam, because I knew how much I loved him, and still love him to this day, but that giddy feeling kind of overrode the sense of guilt I had. But then I became really scared because anybody from the party could walk up to Adam and tell him what I did. So I started hanging out with Adam even more than usual, so no one would get the chance to tell him anything. But whenever someone approached Adam or asked to see him, I panicked. A month passed before I was able to relax, realizing no one was going to snitch on me. Cameron and I did not even contact each other after that night, and honestly, I wasn't even bothered. He was hot, and he certainly had been my type, but I still did not see myself having more than just one night of hot, passionate sex. So I eventually forgot about Cameron. I cheated on Adam twice while we were in college. The first had been with Cameron, and the second time was with James, a friend of Adam's who had come visiting from home for 2 weeks. I had wanted to visit Adam that day, but I hadn't called ahead like I usually did, so I just went there thinking Adam was going to be around, but he wasn't. Instead, it had been his friend who was actually making out with some random girl on Adam's sofa. When I walked in, the girl had quickly left, probably embarrassed that she was seen making out with someone she had just met, and James, not knowing who I was, jokingly told me that I had just walked in on what might have been good sex and told me I had to make up for it. James looked crazily like Cameron. I mean, not facially, but they had the same physique and the same cheeky expression on their faces. But my first thought about him hadn't been sex, though, like it had been with Cameron. So when he said that, I laughed. We started talking about random things, and I asked about Adam. He told me that Adam had stepped out quickly to get some groceries to cook. Soon, Adam joined us, introduced his friend to me, and cooked that evening. We all ate while relating like old-time friends. All 4 of us, Adam, James, Carrie, and I, hung out together throughout his stay, and it was really fun. I knew that Carrie liked James, and I even encouraged her to make her move on him, but James only seemed interested in one person, me. He didn't even care that I was in a relationship with his old friend, and he just flirted seriously with me, especially whenever he managed to get me alone. I enjoyed the flirting, so I didn't exactly discourage him from it, so I guess that gave off the vibe that I liked him. One day, when Adam stepped out to get us more drinks while we were playing some games, James made a move on me. He kissed me, and the crazy thing was that I didn't push him away. I kissed him back just until I felt his hand on my breast. I pushed him away then, and Adam walked in at that moment. I had been so glad I pushed him away when I did, because I couldn't imagine Adam walking in on us kissing like starved people. James had to leave a few days later because his holiday was up, and he had to get back. I didn't have sex with James, though. Yes, I know that I mentioned earlier that I cheated on Adam with James, but that was simply because of the kiss. I mean, kissing someone else, especially when you're in a relationship, could still be regarded as cheating, right? So, anyway, for the rest of our college days, I stuck to Adam. I didn't cheat on him or anything like that again. Our graduation was just the best. It was quite memorable for me because it happened to be one of the best days of my life. Aside from graduating and getting an award that day, Adam got down on his knees in front of everyone and proposed to me. It was so romantic and cute. The crowd went wild, screaming and clapping and whistling. I had been so surprised because prior to that day, he had never mentioned anything about marriage. We never really discussed the future. I was a person who enjoyed living in the moment, so I wasn't particular about the future because I didn't want to be anxious about it. Aunt Amelia would always say worrying about your future would just make you a bundle of nerves. Why don't you just live in the moment and enjoy it and take everything as it comes? So when Adam went up to the stage while we were being addressed by one of our student council members, and he whispered something in her ear, she grinned sheepishly and left the stage, giving the mic to Adam. I had been surprised and looked at Carrie, and she shrugged, not knowing what was going on either. Adam had this long speech note in his hand, and when we later got home and I teased him about it, he told me he didn't want to forget anything he wanted to say, because they were important to him to say every word. When he started to speak, he began with how he met me, and how his first thought when he saw me had been, I have to have this girl be mine. Then he proceeded to say how dating me had been one of his best school experiences, but he didn't want our relationship to end with school, because he knew there should be an us beyond the school walls. Since he didn't want to lose me, he wanted to make things official and trap me before anyone got the chance to convince me to be theirs. Then he left the stage after finishing his speech and came to me in the middle of the crowd, locating me with ease because people just parted and let him through. When he got to me, he got down on one knee with a ring in his hand and asked me to marry him. By that time, I was already crying, and I didn't even realize it until I said yes, and he slipped the ring on my finger and then wiped my tears with his thumb before kissing me. My parents were somewhere in the crowd, but amidst all the cheering and congratulations, it took them a while before they got to us. My mom hugged me tightly, very happy for me, while my dad softly slapped his hand on Adam's back, congratulating him and telling him to take care of me. Oh, I realized I hadn't mentioned before that Adam had actually met my parents before then. We had gone to visit my parents one holiday so they could meet my boyfriend. Apparently, Adam had taken a secret trip to ask my parents for permission to marry their daughter. They had given it, and he told them about his plans to propose on our graduation day. I never even suspected anything, and it had been so romantic, making me love him even more. I knew that single act of his, asking my parents first before actually proposing to me, made my parents love him all the more. We didn't get married almost immediately, though. We wanted to get our jobs first, and then buy a house before we got married, so our marriage didn't happen until a year after school. Then I had gotten my job at the company, and Adam had landed himself a job in a big shot company. Of course, because he was brilliant and smart, he quickly became an asset to the company, and within the first 6 months of working there, he had been promoted twice. We were able to buy a house within a year because Adam began earning a lot of money. We bought a house from an old couple who had decided that they wanted to start a backpacking trip, so they sold the house to pay for their trip. We had to do some work on the house, though, because it was old, though still very beautiful. We added a few things here and there, bought new furniture, and moved in. Adam was the one who tended to our garden, which was left to us by the old couple. I couldn't do it, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. Every plant I touched seemed to die. I remember one time when I got a plant for a class project back in high school. We were supposed to tend to the plants and grow them. Well, I failed that class because my plant never grew, no matter what I did. Believe me, I went through the routines thoroughly. So after that time, I avoided plants because I knew what I could do to them. And again, the garden was too beautiful to die in my hands, so I just admired it from afar while Adam worked on it. We got married in my parents' church, and we had a small celebration. I didn't want something too extravagant because I didn't feel the need for it. Adam was happy to go along with it because he wanted our day to be special, and it really was. Our wedding day was really memorable for us, and the pictures that fill our living room show it. Carrie, of course, was my maid of honor, and she was also the one who caught the bouquet I threw that day. My job wasn't too stressful because the computer did most of the work I had to do. I left work early enough, earlier than Adam all the time, and my weekends were mine to spend however I wanted. Since I was usually home before Adam, I always cooked him dinner and waited around for him to come back so we could eat together and talk about our day. It was kind of the bonding moment we had. Adam's work was more stressful than mine, and since he was literally the brain of his company, his time and attention were in more demand than usual. Sometimes, even on weekends, he was busy with one project or another. On those weekends when he was busy, I would visit Carrie, or she'd come over to my place, and we would chat and gossip all day. Carrie had a relationship after school. He was even her date to my wedding. But they were only together for 2 years before she found out he was married with 4 kids. She was so devastated, and it took her almost a year to get over the breakup. Another time, one guy, Tim, seemed interested in her. I had pestered her to introduce me to the guy because I wanted to see the person she was always talking about, and she had taken me with her on a dinner date with Tim. The same thing happened. Tim flirted with me endlessly, and I went along with it, forgetting the fact that I was there for Carrie. Carrie was upset after that and refused to talk to Tim anymore, and when I asked her why, she refused to say. I started to feel like Carrie was jealous of me. It was obvious I was more beautiful than she was, and that every guy would definitely want to be involved with me, and I felt like it wasn't my fault. One time, I even told her to be grateful she had someone like me to help filter out the bad guys that weren't sincere with her. Adam's company needed some work on graphic design, and he told me he wanted Carrie to do the job, but I discouraged him. At that time, I felt like Carrie wasn't going to do a great job, especially with a high-level company like Adam's. In my mind, I didn't exactly want to embarrass both of us by doing a bad job. Adam wasn't convinced and said he was sure she would do a great job. So he went ahead and took the business proposition to her, and she gladly accepted. I became so angry with Adam and refused to speak to him for days. When Carrie asked why I wasn't speaking to my husband, I told her the truth, and Carrie didn't even react. Now that I think about it as I write this, I realize how selfish I had been, and how I took our friendship for granted and made her feel so small. On our 5th anniversary, Adam and I had planned a trip to celebrate our anniversary, but 2 days before the planned trip, Adam had a work emergency he couldn't get away from. I was so mad at him that I decided to go on the trip myself without him. I asked Carrie to go with me, but she had been working with Adam too, so she couldn't leave. I went on the trip alone, and that was where I met Alex. Alex was a chef at a restaurant I ate at. Alex had been my type of guy, and he was also a chef. I was fascinated at first and curious about his cooking skills, and he taught me 1 or 2 of his secret recipes. Of course, the teaching happened at his place whenever he wasn't working, which was mostly in the evenings. We would make some of his recipes together, eat, and talk late into the night before I went back to my hotel. I had taken a month's leave from work, so I decided to extend my stay under the pretense of learning new recipes, pretending like I hadn't been staying because I wanted to spend more time with Alex. It was inevitable when we started having sex. I mean, maybe it wasn't. But I didn't exactly avoid the situation. Alex, of course, knew I was married because sometimes Adam would call me in his presence and ask about my welfare, but he didn't seem bothered by it. I wasn't bothered either that he had a fiancée who wasn't living around there because of the nature of her job. To us, we were just having casual sex with no strings attached. When the month was up and I had to leave, Alex was quite pained and wanted me to stay longer, but I couldn't, as I had to get back to work and also to my husband. When I got home, I told Carrie about my affair, and she was shocked and became angry on Adam's behalf. I dismissed her anger as nothing because I felt she wasn't even the one I was cheating on. Alex and I kept in touch, exchanging texts and sometimes calls. Most weekends that I usually spent with Carrie became his. I would travel down to Alex's place, spend time with him, and then come back in time for Monday's work. Adam became suspicious of my weekly travels, and whenever he asked, I lied that I had enrolled in a cooking class and couldn't waste the money. Whether or not he believed me, I wouldn't know, but he stopped asking about it. Sometimes Adam would make time to spend the weekend with me, but I wouldn't agree to it. I would rather spend the weekends with Alex than Adam. The funny thing is, I wasn't even in love with Alex, and he also wasn't in love with me. He was just teaching me recipes for free. Well, not for free if we consider sex as payment for the recipes. Carrie, after warning me several times to stop cheating, eventually stopped talking to me, and I didn't even mind. I mean, why would I? I had Alex. Or so I thought. One time Alex came visiting, and it happened to be one of those weekends when Adam was tied up with work and had to go on a work trip. So I invited Alex to come spend that day with me at my place. We did our usual thing, made food, tried out new recipes, had sex, and even watched movies together. We were halfway through the movie, but we didn't even know that because we were making out when Carrie walked in on us. At first I was scared, thinking it was Adam, but when I saw that it was actually Carrie, I calmed down and even went ahead to introduce Alex to Carrie. Carrie was just so shocked that she dumped the bag she brought with her on the floor, murmured a, "Never mind," and left. I was surprised to see her leave, and when I checked the contents of the bag, it contained our favorite junk food and some movies we had been anticipating watching together. We had promised to watch those movies when they came out, but one of them was already playing on the TV. She had obviously come to reconcile with me, and I had just ruined the chance of that happening. Alex dismissed her efforts and drew me back into his arms to continue where we left off, and I went along willingly, trying to dismiss the fact that I was probably losing a long-term friendship over something as fleeting as what was happening between Alex and me. Soon enough, I started to think about how inconvenient being involved with Alex was, especially since I had to lie every time about my whereabouts to Adam. I didn't feel free anymore, and I decided to suggest being in an open marriage to Adam. I knew it was absurd, but at that point, I was clearly not thinking straight. When I told Alex about it, he supported my decision because, according to him, He wanted to see me properly without worrying about getting caught by Adam. Proud that I was making the right decision, I waited for a time when Adam would be at home, relaxed and happy. That time came soon enough as Adam was given leave from work, and he was home most of the day, tending to the garden. He even prepared meals for me before I got back from work. Sometimes he'd take me out to dinner at popular restaurants, pick me up from work, and take me to work. It was really sweet, and I enjoyed all the attention so much that I even stopped visiting Alex. That got Alex agitated, and he would call and text me several times a day, but it was always bad timing, so I couldn't return his calls or reply to his texts. I was either at work most of the day or with Adam for the rest of the day, so there was no time in between to talk to him. That weekend, I had been planning to tell Adam about the open marriage idea. I even decided to cook for us and got up early that morning to make breakfast using one of Alex's recipes. But I made a mistake. I left my phone in the bedroom with my husband. I was setting the dining table when Adam walked in, his eyes red with anger, holding my phone. I immediately understood what had happened. Apparently, Alex had texted again, asking when I was coming, if I had told my husband about the open marriage, and that he missed me. Specifically, he missed having sex. My husband had read that text. I knew I had to act fast before things got out of hand, and the only thing I could say was that I was sorry. I told Adam that I had intended to tell him before that day, and that I felt it would be better and even more exciting if we had other partners despite being married. So I suggested that we have an open marriage. Adam had laughed, and then he instantly agreed. I was surprised that he agreed, but what he did next shocked me more. He left and was gone for 2 whole days, leaving me anxious and scared about what he'd do. When he came back on the 3rd day, he was chippy and happy. I was surprised by the change and happy that he saw things my way. Adam started making long phone calls right in front of me, laughing harder than I had ever seen him laugh. It made me jealous. When I asked him who was making him so happy, he told me that he finally saw the value in having an open marriage and that it was the best thing I could have suggested. He even told me I knew who he was seeing and that he would introduce us the next day. I felt angry and frustrated. I know I had suggested it and had even cheated first, but I hadn't expected him to find someone that fast, and it made me really jealous. Well, the next day came, and guess who it was that my husband was seeing? It was Carrie, my best friend. I was so shocked and thought it was all a facade, but now it's been a whole month, and Carrie and Adam are always together, giving me absolutely no chance or time with Adam. I'm really frustrated and unhappy, and I think I'm losing Adam so fast. Please, guys, I really need your advice. What can I do to get Adam to look at me again? Update. Hello, Reddit. The past few weeks have been hell for me, especially after I made this post to ask for advice. I might as well have just kept my mouth shut and continued enduring the pain of seeing my own best friend with my husband. But instead, I thought it wise to tell my story and ask for any suggestions to get my husband back again. But you guys obviously made me realize just how stupid that decision was. The insults and trolling have been too much for me to handle. When I came here for advice, I hadn't exactly expected to be applauded for my actions, but somehow, in my twisted mind, I had expected that maybe after reading my story, someone would relate and give me advice that would work. But the opposite has been the case so far. The worst pain is seeing Carrie and Adam not even bothering to hide their relationship, rubbing it in my face, and I cannot even complain because I was the one who shot myself in the foot. Alex and I are no longer together. Our affair stopped the day Adam found out about it. I just couldn't bring myself to cheat anymore. I feel so stupid and ashamed of everything I've done. These past few weeks have allowed me to self-reflect a lot, and I realize just how much I've hurt the people I claim to love the most. I hurt Adam by cheating, not once but 3 times, and still had the audacity to rub it in his face. I hurt Carrie by always trying to make her feel small and insecure. But guess who is now so small, insecure, and hurt? Me. My parents, after hearing about what happened, tried to intervene, but when they found out about my part in all of this, they stopped speaking to me as well, though they still call Adam and even Carrie to check up on them. I feel so lonely. Carrie has even moved into our home now and acts like the wife instead of me. It feels really painful watching them get all loved up every day. I wish I had thought about Adam's feelings before I ever thought of cheating on him. One time, I managed to get Adam alone, and I apologized to him, begging him to stop tormenting me. Adam told me that he was not tormenting me, only following the path I had laid. That kept me quiet, and since then, all I can do is watch the both of them. I feel so broken on the inside, like my heart keeps shattering into pieces over and over again. I wish I had never pushed Adam that far. I guess I never realized until now the consequences of my actions. I feel so empty, and yet this emptiness hurts because I have no one to even talk to. Even here is filled with people that hate me. Update. Hello Reddit, this is my last post here. It's been 3 months now. 3 torturous, long months. And 3 months of watching my husband grow more fond of my best friend at my expense. 3 months of backlashing comments. 3 months of agony. 3 months of regret and wishes that might never come true. It's just been 3 months. I wonder how 6 months or 9 months, or even a year or 2 years from now, will look if just 3 months is already this painful. I'm not looking forward to the rest of my life right now. Thanks and goodbye.